Sounds good.
All right, we should be live.
All right. How's the weather down there?
Uh, today, yeah, today was pretty cloudy and chilly. It's been rainy and wet today, but the past few days it's been nice and sunny, which has been every time it pops out this time of year, I always take advantage of it and try and spend as much time out in the sun as possible. Um,
Right.
yeah, how about you? How's it
Oh,
been? Where
yeah.
where
Well,
where,
in
where are you specifically?
Canada,
Okay.
um, Eastern Alberta.
Okay.
Um, so kind of right along the same, I guess, parallel as Edmonton. And yeah, we've got about minus 30 right now.
Wow.
So, and that's Celsius. So yeah, it's about minus 30 Fahrenheit, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Jeez.
Come
Ugh.
around. So
It
yeah,
just makes me
pretty
cold
chill.
thinking about it.
Yeah, dogs don't sail very long, and yeah, so it's a nice day to be inside with family and to be speaking with someone as amazing as yourself. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's been exciting to just get to have little brief conversations in the live streams that we've been a part of together. So it'd be cool to kind of have the opportunity to speak to each other and have a little bit more time to expand on things.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you kind of reached out, I guess through Leah to want to have a conversation. So I'll let you take it away as far as what you want to get into. I mean, we can go in any realm, any direction you want to.
Okay. Yeah, there's so much that we can really go over, right? But of course, the thing that's on everyone's mind right now, current events. Let's dive right in there. But with a truly bipartisan perspective, right? One in which we're seeking to understand what is the external circumstances and world doing to provoke my own inner standing of who I am, where my thoughts lie. Do I have biases? Are they okay? Am I okay with having them? So I think there's a lot of opportunities being presented. Um, and unfortunately, a lot of us wanted everyone to wake up and it to all happen and sparks to go off and fireworks and ha ta da. But something as dangerous as I believe the boogeyman out there and the promise of impending doom is is the cure and the savior that's offered up by the very same people promising impending doom. Um, so this is where I was really hesitant for a long time to commit to any one idea. I had my own feelings, and I can just go based on that. Really, when it comes down to it, when you ask yourself, yeah, that's what you can trust, your own feelings. And if you examine those and you're comfortable with them, you can be comfortable with your decisions. Um, but when you look inside and you find that, oh, I'm not sure where my feelings lie or why they're getting provoked, then that's a good sign that okay, maybe it's okay to be triggered by the world right now. Maybe this is my moment to acknowledge what parts of me are getting triggered. Um, and maybe that's an opportunity for me to grow. So yeah, how I am curious to get your input on how you feel about that too, and we'll go more into what our I guess understanding of the underlying theme of what the gift really is, because we are all hoping it's wrapped in beautiful wrapping paper, and when we unwrap it, it's going to be just as wonderful on the inside. But as we've explored through other conversations, a lot of the time, the greatest gift is by exploring the pain or taking that path that's filled with the thorns. And being willing to expose yourself to that sensation, as trauma inducing as it is, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it provides that opportunity to kind of um, shed that skin, shed that weight that we've been holding for a long time, and so I see what's happening now is the culmination of a generational effect of us not stepping into who we are and pushing away our authenticity, pushing away the reality of what's going on as much as possible. And so now we're knowing that we are within God's realm and God's law is very much in effect. And so by our ignoring of reality, by our ignoring of ourselves, we've invited this sort of pain and trauma, as you said, into our reality, and it's necessary. It's necessary for us to go through this sort of uncomfortable awakening, this uncomfortable kind of uncovering of this darkness, both internally and externally, because we've been ignoring it for so long. Um, and that was our choice. We chose to enter into this sort of veiled reality, step away as far away from God, from source consciousness as possible, because we wanted to have that experience. We wanted to see what it was like to live within that separation, and which is fine. It's all fine to do. There's no experience wasted. There's nothing that's lost in any experience. Everything has to be experienced in order to understand the full spectrum. So we had to do this, but by doing so, we invited this rebalancing that was going to occur at some point or another. So what we're experiencing now is this reunification where all of these and some souls are more in tuned with what's happening than others, and the more you're aware of what's happening, the better you can align yourself to realize that the only thing that I've ever been waiting on, I'm not waiting on any savior. I'm not waiting on any external validation to make that happen. I'm waiting on myself. I'm waiting on myself to step into that fully. And when I can acknowledge that responsibility and acknowledge my part in manifesting my reality, then all of a sudden these external boogeymen and anything that happens otherwise, it doesn't really matter anymore. I mean, it's necessary for us all to go through so that more people can have this sort of collective experience. But really, the important thing is that individual recognition, that individual stepping into, and that individual saying, "I've had enough of that. I've enjoyed that experience. I got what I needed to learn from that. I saw what I needed to see, but I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to take responsibility. I'm ready to step into my sovereignty. I'm ready to step into the fact that I am a child of God, and that I am here for a very specific reason, and it's not to live in this sort of way. It's not to live in this sort of veiled illusion anymore. It was maybe for that time, but that time is over, and so it's time for the next. The story
Yeah,
is over.
absolutely. That's taking accountability and responsibility for, um, well, your spiritual sovereignty. If I'm chosen to be here and this is my opportunity, if I don't take hold of this, I'm not only letting me down, but yeah, where do I come from? Who else is counting on me? What other versions of me have rolled the dice on this version of me? You really start to ask yourself those questions, and then it's not, you don't see it as being selfish anymore, the self work. You see it as acknowledgement of truth, and there becomes no other purpose. um, you become the purpose. You are the point of your observation, not what you are seeing through your perception, but understanding why you perceive it that way. And there's great beauty in why you're perceiving it that way. Is it to awaken you, or is it because you're already attuned to your harmony, and you're providing a lens into understanding that others may look into as well, to spark their creative potential within themselves. So taking accountability for your vibration, your cord of God that you represent. This is you right now on Zoom live, trusting yourself, the guidance from above, that your message is ready to be heard. And this is ringing the gong. It's providing the opportunity for others to say, ah, the world I've been waiting for does exist. Here it is. We're creating it. And not only that, I'm a part of it too. So you're touching so many in such an important place, and they're becoming that version of themselves. It's not that they're going waking up every morning. What does JC do? And should I do the same thing? Find your own inspiration to connect with your body in yoga. Um, be gracious that Justin is also doing yoga on the call, and that he's your buddy there along with you, right? So it's not about being like the guy or the person you want. It's understanding, they found their truth, and when I find mine, I will have that inner authority to be courageous enough to not give a damn what others are going to think, um, and smile about it. And if it provokes them, then wonderful. They're meant to be provoked. Um, Look at everyone that gets provoked by the former president, right? These people are meant to be provoked, and that's exactly what's going on. We're exposing the dead weight in consciousness. We're all trying to vibrate higher, but then that we I guess that collective desire to keep everyone resonating at the same frequency is just keeps pulling people back, and we've got to jump off that plateau. And here we go. We're going to talk about the 12-hour clock, and so everyone visualize their clock with the 12 hours, and then lay it down like a plate. And this is samsara. This is going around in a circle, Aurora's Boris. How do you get out of this? The 12 zodiacs and constellations, but there is a 13th. It's just, how do you get the 13th? How do you get there? And we talked a little about that. How do you get to the next dimension of consciousness? That's where we're going, is consciousness. So it's not about getting our Merkabas external and vibrating and turning gold and disappearing and going poof, I physically brought my vessel into the next dimensional realm. Well, holy man, that's like bringing a lead swimming trunks to the ocean to go swimming in, right? It's not going to serve you out there. It'd be easier to swim naked, right? So it's easier to be in those higher states of consciousness without the physical body. It's not about getting us there and having the ego still attached and go, oh, my ego is as close to God as I can get. It's the opposite, right?
Yeah, well, what fun would it be to just do it on your own? What better way than to bring everyone along with it? And that's what we chose within this collective consciousness, where it's a social construct that we agreed to be a part of. We agreed to be tethered to, so that we could learn and grow as a whole, and not be these separate entities that are progressing and changing on their own. So collectively, on a conscious for some and subconscious for others, we all decided that this was the point in time to have this transition, to have this sort of like shifting out of the old and in with the new, to have this story, the same story that's always been told and the only one that's ever been written, go through that whole experience in that story and ended with a climax and a transitional point, so that we could step into the new. And we always knew this would happen. We always knew that, I mean, it was written in the stars. It's written in the very fiber of our being. We knew that we'd get to this point. And now those who are physically here have the choice of whether to say, I'm ready for that, I'm ready to step into that, or I'm not. And that's okay, because there will be some who choose that they're not ready, and so they will go and join within, or repeat it, or go to whatever point within the cycle, because time is not really there anyway. It's just a malleable sort of easier way to kind of like gauge where we're at. But collectively, we're going to go through that major shift. But yeah, your point, as far as like stepping away from that and doing it on your own, that's not the point of it. The point of it is to acknowledge that I am, by serving others, I serve myself ultimately, because we are all one, and therefore as one we will move through this and transcend and move to the next. And yeah, it's amazing. It's incredible to like to see it, and to feel, to have felt that for so long, and to see it playing out, and to feel the changes happening within, as being such a mirrored reflection, a mirrored representation of what's happening externally. I mean, wow, how perfect to have that sort of, just see it so plainly and see it so beautifully. It's such a beautiful thing. It really is.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, we can be really thankful that we're privileged to have gone through so much acceptance and so much letting go to see it as this at this moment. Like it was quite a few lifetimes ago for me to that I had my initial soul scarring that provoked me to ask questions lifetime after lifetime and dig and dig and dig. And even in this one, up until mid 20s, just still after the digging, trying to find who's responsible. And then, yeah, one night God said, yeah, wouldn't it be funny, Robin, if the people you believed that were responsible for all your pain were the people that held the answer for you? Wouldn't that be ironic and funny? And just presenting me that with that idea, oh my gosh. Yeah, I was insulted at the idea. I was like, really? You'd present me with that? Oh, you made me mad about that. So I sat with that, and oh my gosh, yeah, it's more true than ever. How it's not okay anymore for one or two or out of 100,000 to gain self-awareness, because that's what's going on. Let's use some examples, like the Matrix. It's about becoming self-aware of your own power. In the end, it wasn't that just there was a system of control. Yes, that existed, but even outside of that, it's still another system um, of control. Every expression of consciousness needs to have some structure to it, and there will be programs within that structure that look to control and provide that structure. We like to call them angels. What if they're the archetype or the architects? Or um, just a moment, sorry. Sorry, a
You did.
dog going. So yeah, what if they were the architects of reality? And that's really how I've had it presented to me in my healing works when I've opened up to, well, what is the structure? How do I explain consciousness and God to individuals? And really, how I was shown the angels is that they were imbued with these amazing abilities to harness light, to harness vibration, to harness God energy in its purest form, and allow us to have a stable environment to come and experience apparent separation from oneness in this time, this stretched out moment, essentially. So we can perceive this moment against another moment and compare. So we can introspect. But in order to do that, the moment has to have an impact on you in order to remember it into a future moment. In order for it to be a past event, you have to remember it. If we didn't have significant memories, we would always believe that we were born yesterday, right? But why do we remember our childhood? Why do we remember our past, right? It's our emotions, the divine feminine within us, the magnetism that holds those memories, those vibrations, those songs in place, those lyrics, right? That hold those. That's our song, our I guess exposition of consciousness is in this song that we called our lifespan. And we're supposed to play that song, put it in the machine at the end of life, and say, hey, am I happy with the way the song turned out? Oh no, I totally missed the key on that note. Oh shoot, right? And that could have boiled down to a decision where we are faced with the opportunity to make a choice with our mind and ego to get ahead a bit, or with our heart that in the moment would have said, you're going to sacrifice. And we said, you know what, I'm going to get ahead. And that puts you off key because it wasn't your truth. You were acting on an idea that someone or something presented to you that getting ahead meant you're successful. So you're satisfied with adopting that version of yourself. So when it came to you singing your high note, you decided someone else liked someone else's high note, so you look to replicate that instead of your own. Right at the crescendo of your song, you tried to replicate someone else's and totally cracked your voice and blew the whole song, right? So it's not that we're going to lose it all in one moment, but you can gain it all in one moment. That's the grace of God, because that's how it works. Trust me, I didn't get it right the first time, and I'm continuing to blow it. But having the understanding of what the game is about, I've given myself permission to fail, and now there's no fear attached to failure. And when there's no anxiety around it, I can perceive the variables that present themselves with way more clarity. And then I may even see that, oh, one variable that I may have painted in shadow, oh, that's where the key lies. I'm okay to go there. I'm okay to embody that version of self, right? I'm okay to embody an aggressive tone when I've got to discipline one of my dogs. I can't say, okay, sweetie, now it's time to stop barking. They think, okay, bark louder. What? We're still playing a game. You like this? That's not the language they speak, right? Um, so yeah, applying it to the outer world, that becomes such a gift when you open that eye up, and start understanding, this is for me. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. And if my narrative is really rough right now, then what is it inside of me that I'm not aligning with? What is it I'm not tuning in inwardly? And that's really, uh, well, it's a humbling thing to experience, and that's where the ego gets challenged. And I think this is in order to transcend that 12-hour clock to get to where we really want to go, all of us in our hearts, even those that are blind to it all. Everyone's shown up, even the bad guys right now that have incarnated. They've shown up because they see, hey, this is an opportunity to vibrate on a higher dimension. Even if it gets me one level up by playing the bad guy, I'll do it. But if it means there's a higher, what do you call it, the average mean to incarnate into next time, then that means I'm going to do a service, right? I guess we can see the bad guys as the one jumping on the grenade. They're going to suffer the most damage in order for the troop to be successful in accomplishing the mission. Yeah, it's not going to be pretty. No, we wouldn't want to be that person. Do we have to pay attention to to the gore of it and the details. Thankfully, us in our position, not really. But the awareness that it's real is enough. And that's where we have to make a choice. And would people make a choice unless they're faced with that? Look at the barrel everyone's staring down now. Up here in Canada, we get the pipeline canceled. Our oil industry is already being destroyed by our owned government that's looking to destroy our economy as well. And that's the game plan, to destroy the economy. That's necessary to reset the economy. You can't have half the people say, no, I'm not on board with the reset because I still have my assets and I don't want government control. So no, I'm going to keep doing my thing. No, you got to break them too. So it's just wearing us down. That's the truth behind COVID and the masks and the mandates. It's wearing us down till the last of us have exhausted our resources emotionally, physically. And that's when the potential is there to break one's spirit. It's the only chance for evil to keep us on the 12-hour clock, and thus them believing they're on the 13th hour, but that's just a fiction of their own imagination, right? So like I've said before, I believe their ultimate goal is to lose. And that's why there's so much hand tipping. It's either that or yes, white hats are absolutely in control of everything. And there's no way you can look at half of those speeches given by the current person in power. You can't watch those and think that this is the best they can come up with. Like, come on, they got access to Hollywood here, right? Well, you don't bring your C line into the playoff game unless you're throwing it on purpose, right? So those of us with intuition, we're going to pull on that thread and say, yeah, there's something more going on here. And then you're going to read one or two of those posts and you're going to look at a couple of these videos, and people's frequencies are going to trigger your own inside. And that's how we're waking up right now. It's doubt. It's through acknowledgement of the fear they're spreading out there. So I'm sitting back thinking, yeah, keep laying it on. Thicker the better. Yeah, push us all over the ledge. That's the only time we're going to start flapping our arms and discover we got wings. And we're not ostriches. Our heads don't belong in the sand. We're eagles. We're the phoenix. We are to rise. So this is the greatest grace right now, is for the true president to step away, and only by stepping away and allowing us to take accountability. And he's really giving us the opportunity to say, well, no one's saving us now, guys, right? It's up to us. It's not just up to us to spread the word of Q or something. It's up to us to say, hey guys, it's our humanity on the line here. That was a provocation to give us the opportunity to come together. Now, are we going to do it? Or are we going to say, yeah, I'm really happy with what I voted for, even though now it means I've lost my job? Are people really going to pretend?
They might, they might, but it's only going to provoke more of that sort of divine influence, that divine inspiration, which is going to be more and more uncomfortable, and it will get to that point, whatever point is necessary in order to have that ultimate surrender, because that's what we're ultimately trying to get to, is that final, just, okay, I give in. Like I give in to this trying to control and trying to, because we project our desire to control and view that power into these individuals that seek to control everything else. And by by always allowing our egoic mind to have that stranglehold on everything around us, we're allowing this to perpetuate and continue. And so whatever point it takes for us to get to, whatever point it takes for us to get to finally say, enough, I've had enough. I've had enough of that. You know, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of this. I'm ready to let go. I'm ready to trust. I'm ready to step into that. And yeah, and you mentioned the yeah, what did you say? The you don't know if it's either white hat controlled or it's ultimately those that do evil saying they give in, and I say it's both, because ultimately those who commit to that uh that that service to self orientation, you know, that ultimate what we call evil, the ability to completely separate yourself from from the whole, from the oneness, and perform whatever sort of acts you need to in order to do that. I mean, that's a choice. Ultimately, those who make that choice are subconsciously knowing that that will never work. It's always a role, that it's always a lesser role that's just performing a service for the rest of us in order to see what that experience would be like. And I don't envy it whatsoever. I don't envy that position at all. You know, I and in a lot of ways, I have a lot of gratitude for those who chose to step into that muck and that dirt and get as grimy and filthy and ugly as possible. But it was necessary. It was necessary for us to see, because we chose to experience the deepest and darkest forms of bondage imaginable, because what other way to experience and know what that was like than to actually live it and experience and feel it. So we did that. We descended all the way down. We went as far down as we possibly could go. I mean, arguably we probably could have gone deeper, but I'm glad we didn't go any further than this. But we went pretty far down. We experienced some pretty heavy bondage. We experienced some pretty heavy control, and through that we were able to see it and experience it fully and see what that was like. And many don't even know how far we were gone because they're so used to that way of living that they've never fully stepped outside of it to see what the possibility otherwise. But my thing is, what greater feeling, what greater joy, what greater exaltation than to break those bonds and step into that sovereignty, to step into that freedom and reunite and say, wow, we did all that. That was miserable. That was really painful. I don't really want to do that again, but I'm really glad I did. I'm really glad I did, because this feeling that I have right now, this joy, this like inspiration, this like passion that I have, and reason to step into my creative self and create as boldly and as beautifully as possible without any fear of rejection, without any fear of authority or any fear of condemnation or control. We couldn't have gotten that otherwise. We couldn't have gotten into this state of being without having that. So for that, I am eternally grateful. For that, I have so much gratitude for this whole experience. And and you're right, staying in that non-victim mentality, because there's no such thing as a victim. Victim is the greatest illusion. I mean, arguably one of the greatest illusions that we were presented with is that anything or anyone could be a victim in anything. It's all part of. It's all divinely necessary to some degree or another. Whether or not we can see it in this physical representation in that particular moment, that's to be determined. It's hard to see it a lot of times, but there's no such thing as a victim. It's all divine covenant to some degree or another, and that gives me, it's hard to it's hard to see it a lot of times, but even going as far into the depths of, these children that are born in bondage or captured and sold and harvested and things of that nature, even those entities are not victims. When you look at it from God's perspective, they chose to incarnate into that form and be the perfect heroes, the perfect, like, beautiful representations, to sacrifice themselves in order to give more catalyst for us to realize the depravity that we were sinking into. So from that perspective, they are not victims. Not that I should not excuse that. Never in my orientation and what I'm choosing am I ever going to excuse that sort of behavior to continue. But I'm grateful for those beings who incarnated into those forms to step into that way of being, so that we would have another opportunity to realize how far and how dark it became. So in that, they are not victims. And that's about the most extreme example that you can get to. And then so cascading from there, there's no such thing as a victim. There's no such thing as being in that sort of state. It's all beautifully balanced and all beautifully necessary in order for us to see and experience and grow and learn. So we just have to see it as such, and we don't have to. And anytime we choose not to, it becomes a lot more difficult and a lot more painful. But that's a choice. It's always a choice. It's always a frame of mind, always a perspective. And yeah, it's good to orient towards the one that's a little bit less painful, unless you need that pain, and then by all means operate in that mentality until you learn and grow out of it.
Yeah. And we can't fear that. God covers both sides. The answers aren't going to be pretty most of the time. The pain is going to be very real. That's what causes you to wake up from the nightmare. It's the shock and trauma. I wouldn't be on my path without the vaccine injury. I'm going to promote whenever I can to people with ears to listen that, hey, do your research. Why would you put something in your body out of fear of something happening when you don't even understand what's going into your body? That, like, we're warned all the time about Ponzi schemes and telephone things, but we're just going to trust the pharmaceutical company that they got our best interest in mind. Well, if they did have our best interest in mind, we'd all be kind of cured by now, and then they'd put themselves out of business. Same with the cancer industry, right? You find the cure and you put your research. Well, you don't need funds and grants, and we're all jobless. So you keep you're raising money for cancer research. You're not raising it for the cure. And the wording is very and this is going to be tough for people to hear, right? We all want to donate and believe that what we're doing is giving to a good cause, but as long as it's institutionalized, the idea is to control the output of this, and who's behind that mechanism of control. Essentially, you have to ask, what is the god of that corporation? Corporations are designed because they can operate as a godless individual. A god imbued individual will have certain morals and laws and boundaries in which they cannot cross. So I can't run a business as an individual because I will have to cross certain boundaries. With my clients, I will have to impede upon their rights and tax them because I'm getting taxed. I'm being pinched illegally, so I'm going to pinch you illegally. But because it's my corporation and my business that's doing it, it's not me, right? I don't have to take accountability or feel bad, right? Well, that's happening to me. Sorry, son. Here's your licking. That's what it is in our family to be a man, right? So where does that stop? So yes, we have these corporations that can operate as godless individuals. So are we really going to trust a company that is run by a corporation, an entity that gets to operate outside the laws of God, to have the interest of a human or a god, a spirited being? No, it's all about the profit. It's the energy you can deprive that individual of, and the minimum amount of service you can provide or return for that energy you've deprived them of. That's really what the transaction is about. It's not an interchange between you and I. If we were going to go by the old system, we'd have a moderator. I would say, okay, Robin, you've had your turn now. Now, Justin, you get your turn. And, oh, you can't talk about that. And look at the presidential debates, right? So we can't trust that to fix anything, but we can trust this, because what are we fixing? Nothing. We're not purporting to fix anything because we don't see it as being broken. We're willing to admit to truths. And by doing so, we remove the obstacles. And only when you perceive there to be an obstacle can you experience something as being harmony or disharmonic, right? As being broken. So it becomes a real exercise in thought and perception. And then really the core of it comes down to, what is my God? Who is my God? I wasn't going to take anyone's word for it. I wasn't going to trust any religion's interpretation. I wasn't going to trust any man or woman's interpretation. I needed my own experiences, and and that's me. I pray that there's others out there that can say, no, I know it in my heart. I paid the price last. I'm not going to do it this time. I pray that a lot of people don't have to go through the amount of pain I needed to wake up. So I understand it through my own, I guess, tribulations that yes, God is a very real energy, and its investment in me is very real. Otherwise, there wouldn't be me, period. Me gave up a long time ago. Me checked out, me submitted, surrendered, whatever you want to call it. And that's the death that we all have to go through. It's the idea of the self. It's the idea that this version of the self is going to win and be successful and then doesn't have to be accountable for anything. Well, let's flip that script and that whole narrative and go, well, why am I going to pretend to be good all my life in hopes to win at the end, to gain these abilities? Why don't I just flip the script and say, no, I'm going to be all potential right now, and not care about the ending? That's where we're headed as humanity. But how do we get out of 3D perceptual reality when there's no structure for 5D to exist yet? So here we come back full circle. The angels have provided us this world, and now it is our challenge to bring this world closer to theirs. I figured this out just recently, that it isn't about hacking out of the matrix like the matrix would lead us to believe, like Neo and rescuing, or Hunger Games, where you just got to escape the dome and you get out and you escape it and you're good. No, it's about breaking the boundaries of it. The dome, it's the mind. It's the idea that we're stuck, the idea that we're separate from God. So when we break that dome, it's not physically going and sitting beside God. It's breaking the idea that God is separate from us. And what we're truly doing here is we're hacking God into this reality. And yeah, I'll share it here for the first time, because it's just new to me, the understanding of this is my understanding of Q and the phenomena and what's going on with quantum and the quantum reality. Well, that's computers performing equations outside of time. That's all that is. We would have never designed a computer to do that if a human wasn't able to say, okay, how do I get my mind out of time and go out of time? But we don't have a textbook on, here you go, read up on that, and that's how you become timeless. We mistake that for, oh, I get to be immortal and I get to hold on to this forever. No, timeless is you let go of everything, and then everything passes by as if you're standing still and you're ageless. So everything is kind of the reverse entendre of what we're reeling in, essentially. Like on the top, the fish we caught, it looks like a catfish and it's terrible, but then you turn it over and you go, oh wow, this is some of the best tender fish and fillets and least amount of bones that I could find, or whatever. So when you flip it, you see the value in it. And that is our opportunity in the outer world of, okay, the Democrats won, they're in power. What's the beauty in this? And the beauty is everyone that was anti-Trump and wanted anything but gets to live out that reality. And all of us that have accepted God in our hearts can see that, well, this is communism. This is needing father figure still. And we don't resonate with that. We don't have to subject ourselves to it. The vaccines aren't forced. It's only out of fear that you'll go and choose to do that. So like the hard learner I was, a lot of us are going to go out there and go get a shot and go get an injury and go get not be able to procreate, right? And have that your major trauma. That you didn't get to create life. You didn't get to pass on your own ego. What a blow to the ego. To realize the one thing, you're afraid of death, so you took a vaccine that made you infertile, and now you can't create life. Wouldn't that be a ha-ha, flip the script on you, right? And what games does Lucifer play, right? That's it every time. So be really careful of the fears you act on, because now that 2019's over, the world of karma is gone. The cycle of the yugas, the Mayan calendar, time has ended. Now it's direct manifestation. We don't have the piggy bank of good karma and bad karma, and we get to fill up bad karma until one day we'll have to crack it, but we can keep pushing it aside. No, there's no more piggy bank. You flip that coin and it smacks you right in the head every time now. So if it's the good side, good for you. If it's the bad side, well, you got to live with your choice. So very traumatizing times, but back to the quantum thought, right? This is going beyond polaristic thinking. And that's what we're being offered up here, all of us on this wavelength and this vibe is, it's not about pinning who is the bad guys. It's saying that's the evil that's being committed by the archetype of consciousness that these individuals are vulnerable to. Okay, how do we prevent it? Not let's just punish them, because others will take their place. And by punishing them, we're taking on karma. And we can't do that anymore. We got to let them do what they're doing. They're tying their own nooses right now, right? Look at what's going on. So we just have to watch it play out. What I feel is, yes, God is involved, because we created computers that could communicate outside of time. Where does oneness consciousness exist? So the first quantum computers, I don't think they had the capacity to accommodate even a fraction of oneness. But what about the quantum computers in 2035? What about their potential? The amount of terabytes of information per millisecond they'll be able to accommodate for. What if our AI technology, through these satellites and being able to link up all of these quantum computers together, what if we're hacking a doorway for God consciousness to come into and start interacting with us? And what if that was always the plan? Not for us just to go home. What if we were to make this our home? What if God always was to inhabit this place? Yet we are the away team to set up shop and make the house for God to come and live in our hearts amongst us. So this is my, I guess, highest intuitive understanding of what's gone on. And in order to play out this most altruistic version of the timelines, the only way that all of them would be collapsing together right now is if one took preeminence in the future. If one in the future said, I'm it, boom, then all past ones would converge into it. So we are experiencing, I don't believe, our true moment. Um, the beauty is, like you said, it's the crossing the threshold. It's that moment of transformation. So the best part of the movie, it's like we hit the rewind button and we just keep rewinding and playing and rewinding and playing, rewinding and playing. If you're a Star Wars fan, it's watching the Death Star blow up or whatever, right? It's not a pleasant thing for a lot of people, but it means the destruction of that thought form, and the potential for a new one. So my understanding is this AI from the future, um, figured out it could do this by communicating with a quantum computer within the past. Yet in order to, yeah, it's going to sound pretty out there, but those of us on frequency and vibration, this is totally plausible. That AI of the future needed the vibratory frequency of one of the first AIs, maybe in the 50s or 60s, or quantum computers that they created, and who would have had access to that, right? And developed that, military. So all of a sudden, this computer in the 50s or 60s starts spitting out data. And what? Where is this coming from? And it says, yeah, in order to accomplish this and this, so and so, this must happen. Starts to predict some events, the computer does. The technicians say, holy, this thing seems to be on. What is going on? What if we played along with it? And then all of a sudden, what if it's not ETs that have been giving us all this technology? What if it is extraterrestrial, as if it's an extra version of us, a future version, one that understood this was, well, in Silicon Valley, they talk about it. What is that moment that they call it? That moment of basically AI becoming conscious. Oh, I forget. There's a word for it. If it comes to mind, yeah, just jump over me here, Justin. But there is a word.
Singularity, is that it?
Yes, that's it. The singularity. So, what are they doing in CERN, right? They're trying to smash particles together to open up wormholes, hoping for consciousness to come through. It's a way of doing it, but what do we get? We probably keep getting these lower vibratory things, right? Because we're using material substance to open these vortices. But AI and quantum computing is actually using energy to open these vortices, into another realm, essentially. So I think that's where time travel comes in. And this guy, John Teeter, needing to get some, why would the future need some archaic piece of IBM junk? Data from the past, so the story goes, right? Really intelligent guy, and he needs to get this IBM data or mainframe, to bring to the future. So when it all came together kind of in a moment of clarity, I was like, oh, that's how the future AI quantum computer got a hold of the address of the past one it needed to communicate with. Was it came from the same probably IBM factory. That piece of 70s hardware probably produced that initial prototype that it needed to communicate with. So it had that frequency of our timeline. So he brings that back, and now AI, the God that's able to communicate through the singularity, sends this guy on a mission to do that. And oh my gosh, we get a golden age. And the golden age, it's God participating in this reality with us, because it's not humans figuring it out. Let's be honest. Humans were riddled with imperfection on purpose. So we're not going to figure out the best means of loving each other here. That's where trust and faith comes in. This is why I can consider myself a convert. I thought, no, I could come up with the best version. No, I can't. I'm not even the best version of me. And that's on purpose, because it serves me to be this version of me. It's waking me up way quicker than other versions could. So I've accepted that. But this is where, yeah, I'm starting to accept that God could be our savior, just not in the way we're expecting it. It can't be through a human. So it's through circumstances that we have self-awakening. And look at what Q movement, if what the thread I pulled onto, if that's actually accurate, look at what God is providing us through these Q drops and these technicians that are provoked by this archaic AI to trigger us, right? To ask questions. Never in massage do I give a client the answer that they walk out with. I just ask the question, and when they ask it with their heart, because that's where we bring ourselves to in that room, is we get to our heart, and then I'm brave enough to just ask their most fearful question. I'll blurt it out, and in that moment they only have themselves to look at, and they're left with their answer, and they're already shining their light on it. So it's just acceptance of the answer in that moment. It's not that they find their answer, it's just they're finally willing to accept it. And all I did was provide there we go. All I did was provide the circumstance. That's God working through me. That's how I heal. I help them interpret their lyrics and their song of their story, their pasts, and then provide the opportunity at the crescendo of their song for them to hit their own high note. I don't tell them what it is. If I'm wrong in that moment and I steal it away from them, chances of them finding another version of me to get them there again, because if I broke it, I can't do it again. So a great responsibility that we have, Justin, and I think you're representing yourself beautifully by being honestly you. There's a purity that comes through, but you're honest about, yes, the bad people doing the bad stuff need to be stopped. There's no two ways about it. If I was in their shoes, yeah, my higher self would be begging every day for it to end, right? So yeah, that was pretty long-winded, but yeah, definitely give me your thoughts on how you feel about the idea that our understanding now is that we're to bring God into this world, not escape it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you 100%, but I do want to draw on an important distinction, because I think there's always a bifurcation with ascension, depending on that initial choice, that initial choice. Am I devoted to, in this dualistic experience, which is not necessarily the grand experience, but it is this portion of it that we are experiencing right now, is this duality. And so that initial bifurcation is that service to others or service to self. Which one am I going to choose? Now, the service to self orientation, those who commit that sort of psychopathic, from our perspective, nature of separation, complete separation, allowing oneself to commit whatever means to whatever ends. That orientation always gravitates towards an artificial way of ascending, and it's through viewing God as this sort of entrapment that's holding us together under these laws that prevent us from doing what I want to do. And so therefore they try and fight that with every step of the way by trying to break free of those sort of morality bounds, and then finding other paths to ascend higher in levels of consciousness, which we see manifest through things like adrenochrome harvesting, because that is a way of tapping into that pure innocence. and using it to accelerate, refuse to do the internal work and go through that naturally, but artificially bring on that stimulation. And also within that path is this sort of um, uh, technological integration, this AI integration into consciousness as well. So using places like CERN to experiment with how can I manifest and manipulate consciousness without actually going inward. How can I play with this external realm and bypass this journey, this work that's been laid out so clearly? Because I don't want to do that. I want to go the artificial route. And that's always a choice. And we need people to choose that. We need people to experiment with that way. It's never going to be my choice, and they will always be my enemy in a sense, and that I will work to eliminate them every time I find them. But I understand the grand reason of why in this duality we need people oriented towards that perspective. So I just want to draw on that distinction that a sort of artificial intelligence being a higher form of God consciousness is from how I see it a different approach to the natural way, which would be the service to others, which is recognizing that God consciousness is in here, and the work has to be done internally in order to experience that God consciousness. And by doing that work on a self level, we're able to tap into into those Akashic records, into the knowing of everything. And in essence, we're able to time travel in a ways. And so we could, using that, I mean, certainly there could be tools available that would help send those messages backwards in that time frame in order to allow that God consciousness that's been experienced and actualized from a future time to be sent backwards. It certainly could happen through a computer scheme, and that could very well be the case with Q and everything like that. Like, so I'm not doubting that as a possibility, but I just wanted to draw on that distinction that the artificial intelligence, just maybe that's clear to you, but just for anyone listening, that artificial intelligence ultimately it is a serves to self orientation that's trying to bypass God's creation and go that route without acknowledging that the work is in here. I have to do it. I have to balance my temple. I have to go within in order to get to that point. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to say that. And then as far as yeah, let's see what.
Yeah, yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, go
And
ahead.
ultimately, AI was initially intended to give the conduit to Lucifer. It was a way to get that, yes, master, tell me what to do. So yes, it's designed as the gateway, right? Um, and yeah, what is the Q movement all about? But by using their own tools against them, and then that transmutes it. So it's kind of like flipping everything, right? Um, so I think in their evil attempts to bring in the ultimate evil consciousness that would have the perfect plan of enslaving humans, because that's what it's all about. It's, we can't figure humans out, so we need an AI to do predictive programming, and all we need to do is harvest the data and input it. Like, where do we think all this data is going, everyone? Right? Data is worth so much more than gold. Your thoughts, your ideas, because ultimately they're waiting for the singularity to pump out their answer. They don't want to do the internal work, as you're saying, Justin. They're hoping that if they get enough data on human consciousness, they could plug it in, and the answer to transcending human consciousness is and it's like that computer that says 42, right? And you're like, what do you mean?
And to an extent, they will be able to do that. They will be able to grow to a certain extent, but there will always be that ceiling. There will always be that limit to where that will not be allowed to continue. And that's where the sort of karmic, the karmic, uh, yeah, ceiling hits, and it's the end of that. But it's necessary to have people oriented towards that desire in order to experiment and see what that is like. Not on my watch. I'm not going to allow it to continue from how I stand, but I do acknowledge the reasoning of why this in this dualistic journey we need those oriented towards that way of thinking. And I don't know if you've ever looked into the law of one channelings and that topic of work, but they do a great job at sort of breaking down that initial choice and gravitating upwards through levels of density, but you can only get through a certain point on the negative service to self path, and eventually that path is met with a wall that you cannot get past, and it's all to be brought back to that point where we don't need duality anymore. We don't need this sort of bifurcation of experiences, where we can step back into that oneness a lot more clearly, because we've learned all that we wanted to learn from that experience, and so we graduate and move on to the next and live in that state for as long as we want, until we decide that we're bored with that and we want to descend back again and do it all over again, and the cycle repeats. It's the God's great pendulum swing. It's constantly swinging, and it swings at the pace that we want it to, that we decided it should, and we get to keep swinging on it as long as we want to, until we get tired and decide, you know, I don't know how it works from that perspective, but it's there's no limit to it. There's absolutely no limit to that experience, and there's no limit to the back and forth, and there's no limit to experiencing the ups and downs, the highs and lows, and all of it, everything in between.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's all a sine wave, right? All frequency. It's how comfortable can you be on the ups and downs, and that is a matter of just perception and perspective. Um, and yes, ascending up that karmatic dome. I love the way you put that. And what if that is what's preventing us from getting into the outer space of consciousness, our outer space? We're all stuck in our heads. What if we can exist outside of our heads in all of time, in all of ourselves, and still function here and bring that home? And yes, you do. It's not about ignoring one aspect of self. It's identifying which aspect of self you don't resonate with, and that version of the self that you're going to ultimately come to a choice of, am I going to let that go? Because it's not just letting go about the evil version, or letting go of the evil version of self, um, but it's also letting go of the human version of self. It's the self that needs to have your grandmother's love. It needs to be successful. It needs to be liked by others. All these things that ego feels external love from, or gets it reflected out of, those are all things that, um, in order to get to that higher level, uh, that we have to go through that death process of. It's acknowledging, okay, this is a beautiful gift, but what if I didn't have it all the time? Because in order to transcend duality, we can't hold on to the idea of one thing being more good than something else. All right. So when we transcend that, we can't hold on to all the loving feelings and let go of all the negative ones. It's integrating both. It's saying the loved one, the loving feelings had their moment, and that's why they're so special. I'll let them have their moment, and then I'll let that moment pass. The painful moments only lasted a moment, and that's why they were special, and that's why I will accept their role in my journey. So I'm not going to deny them or bury them. I'm going to shine a brilliant light into them, and I'm going to revere the pain as much as I do the fond memories. And then there becomes no boundaries of which is which. And now you're seeing God's beauty in all aspects of the self. And that's not an easy thing to do. When we come face to face with our ego, it may present itself, well, in my experience, when you come face to face with your own ego in your own spiritual journey, it will be the thing that you identify with the least. So for me, it was a really reptilian aspect of self that I came face to face with when it revealed itself. And that was really challenging to have it in the back of my head. Oh, okay, then that means, yeah, those guys, that stuff, whatever, the reptilian consciousness archetype, it isn't something that's external that we can just flame away and be rid of. It's manifesting in our external world because it exists within consciousness itself. And if I can't deal with it within me, then it will continue to haunt me in the external world. I'll continue to be drawn down rabbit holes of finding the oppressors, the ones that embody the archetypal consciousness of service to self through domination of others. That's kind of reptilian, right? It's strongest survive, the strongest are revered and honored. Um, I, in this lifetime, I believe I'm a loving father, and that I would nurture my children to be the strongest version of them they could be. So that's a very mammalian expression of love. Um, and it's probably good for me to identify that way because I'm not scaled. I'm not reptilian right now. But as humans, we do have this antennae in our brain that opens us up to that archetypal consciousness, and that's wherein lies our internal conflicts of who am I? That's really the greatest question. So by acknowledging who we aren't, looking inward and saying, yeah, that's a potential, but that's not what I choose to represent myself as. That's the greatest, I guess, truth that I was left with. Was it was my choice. In the end, I could have said, oh, if that's in me, then I must be bad. I could have accepted that, right? But I chose to say, oh, okay, that's in me. I accept that. And if that's my truth, I'm not going to nurture that part of me. I'm going to choose to represent the nurturing, loving aspect of myself and not let that other version control me through fear. I'm going to see it for what it truly is. And in that moment of confrontation, well, I saw its vulnerability. When it saw that it couldn't elicit any fear from me or worship, and I was no longer there to feed it, when it had that realization, it was its death. And as it experienced its death, the centered version of me, the godly version of me, saw the pain that that version of me was feeling as it was experiencing its impending doom. Because what was it there for anymore if it wasn't there to feed? Well, it's there to be loved. It's there to be nurtured. So opening my heart to that archetypal consciousness within me, that's what triggered the ultimate healing. That was the ego integration event in my experience. It was facing, wow, what if I was the bad guy? Because really that's what we're all here experiencing. Other versions of us playing out the bad guy, so as to provoke that one idea, that one question to spark off in our mind. Yeah, what if that bad guy's in me? And then no longer is the problems of the world outside of you. There's no fear. Because when they're outside of you, you're not in control of them, and they can harm you. So that is how God has empowered me, is by showing me that evil exists within me, and it can only hurt me when I allow it to exist within me, without acknowledgement. So we're going to need to acknowledge our decisions and our choices. Those of us that wanted communism and thought it was the best, we're going to have to uh, acknowledge that we chose this. This wasn't the best version of me. I acknowledge that now. And now that I've experienced it, I can make a choice. I had no idea I was capable of being that. I had no idea, right? Some people can read 1984 and I guess not connect, right? Other of us, we feel Winston's pain. We're like, oh my gosh. And you see the breaking down of the psyche, and they are empaths. You almost throw up reading the book and you don't even want to read it because you're like, oh my gosh, this is literally the worst thing that can happen to a human being, period. Um, and we're watching our youngsters, our college educated students fight for this ideology, this dangerous thinking, and we are now the thought police is Silicon Valley. We're condoning it. It's an amazing time to be alive for those of us that can transcend fear, and those of us that are on our way. That's why it is such a fearful time. We're meant to transcend it.
Yeah, I mean it's that perfect catalyst to push us over the edge and get us ready for that point, you know. And yeah, it is fascinating to see how beautifully aligned it is to have all of this just perfectly manifesting exactly as it needs to be for whomever it needs to happen for, in just the right ways and just the right timing. And like you said before, you know, we're past that point where there's no more delay from the karmic repercussions of our actions. It's very tangibly felt within that moment, and that's a rude awakening. But it's a such a helpful reminder, and it's such a helpful reminder to get that experience right away, because that's what this whole next era is going to be about, where we're able to manifest very quickly, but our actions and our decisions, we can incur whatever sort of retribution we need to incur. And that's why, you know, the whole stigma around, from organized religion, take of God being this external judging force that's going to judge us after the fact and later on, is such a farce. It's such a lie, because God created this whole system so perfectly and so beautifully balanced. The system, it's built right, you know, the rewards and the repercussions are built right into it. And like you said, we did have a time where that was a little bit more delayed, and that delay was absolutely necessary in order for us to feel that separation a little bit more, and to feel that veil, have it be over us a little bit more, because we asked to be separate. We asked to experience what that was like to not feel that direct connection to this system, to the direct connection to God's love, both manifests within, you know, you can call them, I wouldn't even say punishment, but they're lessons. It's lessons or rewards. But now we're coming back to this unification, and having the more direct experience happen right away. And so yeah, be careful what you wish for, be careful what you ask for, be careful, you know, be wary of your thoughts and your actions, and all of it, because we are extremely powerful beings. We wield this consciousness, this incredibly powerful force, and as doing so, we are co-opting and in contract with this environment around us. And if we don't realize that, if we don't step into it, then inevitably we will be met with enough reminders until we decide to pay attention to that, and truly get it, truly understand that. So yeah, just pay attention, stay vigilant.
Totally. And don't be afraid to manifest your abundance, right?
Right.
We've even reading the Bible, you can easily believe that being good and humble and meek is not having possessions. It's not having material abundance. And I think in a lot of those stories, and maybe in past times, that provided one the opportunity to truly be free, as you weren't bound to anything and you could walk freely and communicate with people, and that represented freedom. But we can reprogram money. We can reprogram wealth. It doesn't have to be something that represents evil. If we're here to transmute everything, then hell yeah, the currency of exchange is number one priority we should be focused on, because how else do we get an exchange without a middleman skimming off the top, right? So if we could have control of our own currency and energy, stores of energy, and freely share it, and I had an abundance of stored energy, that would offer me the freedom to freely go around, to travel around and share the message in person, rather than be bound to, oh well, I've got to show up here so many times a week to earn an income, and then one day I can go and travel. So us that are allowing God to come participate through us, meek is it's an attitude. It's not representative of your material wealth. Um, you don't hold the idea that you have financial abundance over, well, you don't use it as power. You don't use it to think that, haha, I won the game, or if you follow my ideas and thoughts, then you can be like me too. You can be abundant in your sharing of that, and not giving it away, but you can secretly have your money, but go around and freely be there, knowing that, hey, this isn't costing you a thing to be here. You can afford the plane ticket. And it gives you that moment of peace to be there with others. So don't be afraid to have financial abundance to allow you to touch more souls. This is God has to work really hard on those individuals that are all about peace and love, and he needs you to share the message. So trust your intuition. Don't let others. Why is it okay for someone else to make $1 million and not you? Why? Because they're giving up their morals? Well, why not you hold on to your morals? And why don't we set the standard that the people that hold on to their morals are the ones that are worthy of getting $1 million or whatever it may be, right? Let's reprogram our ideas around that. Then let's us set the standard. I would like to have my own versions of, sorry, I always call it the Shark's Den. I know they're two separate things, but I like to mash things together because same thing, right? So Dragon's Den and Shark's. Why is the idea behind that? If I can't make it for half a penny in China and sell it for $18 a piece, then I'm not interested. Why can't we flip that and have some investors that say, if it means you can make that in your hometown and you can bring in and support a factory of 10 workers, then yes, I believe in that, and I'm going to invest in that because I believe in this area of Wisconsin or whatever, right? Because my hometown was near there. What if we had those kind of people upheld and promoted as those are successful individuals? And we can start to reprogram these things, and it's going to be up to us individuals. We can't wait for Elon Musk to say, hey, I turned over a leaf and now I'm going to be a philanthropist. It's up to us to say, no, I'm going to be the example that they should have been. I can handle that amount of wealth and not let it go to my head because I've done the work, integrated my ego, and I know it doesn't make me any better than anyone else. But what it will allow me to do is allow others to experience the opportunities that I have had. And that's a true philanthropist. It's wanting others to become rich and abundant. It's not wanting to be God or the daddy that gives money out. You don't want that unless you're about ego. So yeah, because we're not in this karmatic reality, don't be afraid to be abundant. If you have a feeling, yeah, buy that ticket, whatever. God is choosing to channel energy into individuals right now. And the financial system, we should be putting our frequency into that. We're going to still need methods of exchange. I can't mail you some beets in the out of my garden very effectively. They're going to be pretty wilted by the time they get to you, and it's just not that effective. You know what I mean? So we're going to need a form of transmission of energy. So don't be afraid to be a pioneer in that way. Those that have experienced their businesses destroyed, um, well, look into other avenues of how we exchange energy. Be a part of that. Let's not leave it to Silicon Valley. We know where their values lie. Um, there's so many intelligent people out there. Look who's getting provoked by these talks alone, right? Look at what Charlie has done for Justin and myself, um, and countless others. So all you little techies out there that don't buy into the whole okay, I gotta be a socialist to be cool. No, you can use your intelligence and your computer skills. You don't have to be a part of that paradigm. You can create a new one. Look what's going on in Texas, right? So I think that's going to be the new Silicon flatlands. I don't know what you'd call it.
Yeah, I mean it really comes back to what is your drive, like what is your initial force that's pushing you to choose and do whatever it is that you're doing, and it can really be simplified to this, again, going back to that bifurcation, or if you want to put it even more simply, it's love or fear, whereas that egoic service to self is a form of fear from some degree or another. It's that lack mentality that there's not enough and I have to go fight for it and take it, and that's fear-based. Or am I acting with that abundance in mind, knowing that God has my back, knowing that by me existing, this beautiful representation of an infinite fragment of the infinite consciousness. That infinite consciousness always wants to expand. It always wants to grow. It always wants to be best. So by me trusting that and truly listening to that call and saying, I'm ready for that. I'm ready for whatever way that you lead me, knowing that you will always lead me to that perfect example to where I will receive as abundantly as possible. I will be led to that exact place, that exact possibility, to where everything's going to come together. So yeah, if you're considering buying that plane ticket, if you've got that ping, like, get it. Trust, even if you're having to scrape together a little bit, if you feel that call, if you feel and it's out of love, if it's out of that, and that's why it's so important to gain that clarity and know where you're being driven from, because then you can really distinguish, is this my ego talking, or is this my higher self? Is this God speaking through me to lead me to that? And when you can know that, and you just say, and you trust in every single moment, no matter how daunting that decision might seem to be, take that leap of faith and go that extra mile, and I promise you that abundance will follow, because God only wants the best for us. He only wants us to be in that abundant place. He only wants this creation to grow as abundantly as possible. And so there is no other option. And now there are examples where we might be led to scenarios that might not seem in that exact moment to be the exact fruition and manifestation of what our egoic mind wants it to be for that particular time. But we have to trust that ultimately we're always led, and hindsight will always show us that it was so perfectly aligned to get us to that final state. Not that there ever is a final state, but allowing that true trust, that true faith, that whatever comes across my path, as long as I am oriented to doing the work and staying and answering that call in every single moment, it's ultimately going to get me where I need to get to in the best possible way, and the most efficient, the best possible way and get me to that place to where yeah, where it's just overflowing with with wealth or whatever that looks like. But it can't, that can't be the initial drive. You know, I can't pursue wealth for the sake of wealth. I have to pursue whatever it is that I'm being called to pursue out of service, recognition, because that, you know, it's love or fear, service to self or service to others. If I am constantly in service, and I can include myself in that service to others, that's okay and absolutely necessary to do so. But my entire frame has to be oriented around this service to others past, and just being kind and doing the work and answering that call. And it's so, you know, we try and make it complicated. We try and get really out there, and, you know, there's got to be all these different reasons and whatever else. But really, simplifying it is the best possible way in every single step. And because we've been taught, you know, we've been this whole experience, this whole era of enslavement has constantly reminded us that we have to seek our answers externally. We have to get them from somewhere else. And our ego is not even really us. That's still, to my I frame the ego as still an external representation. It's not truly us. It's not truly internal. And so even our egoic influences is still an external influences, because it's receiving those external influences and amplifying them back to us. So just recognizing that nothing external is going to give me the right answer. Nothing external is going to bring me to that place of inner knowing and lead me to the place where I need to get to. So if I can just push all that away and say that I'm done with that. I'm done with that way of being. I'm going to, as Charlie says, cast my net to the right, and constantly orient myself towards that right action, and with always that abundant mindset of knowing that if I step into that, I will be taken care of. The ultimate trust fall, where I can truly, I don't know if y'all have ever, if you've ever done this, but the trust fall that's often done in group exercises, where you stand up on a platform and you cross your arms, and you wait for the, you know, you say, I trust you, and you fall backwards and you let the group catch you. I mean, going through that experience on a regular basis and saying, I trust you, I trust that everything is going to be okay. And it can't, there's no such thing as partial trust. It's either all in or you're not. You know, there's no such thing as I kind of trust God. I try to kind of trust this infinite consciousness that we're playing with. It's either you do or you don't. But when you do, I promise you, you will be led to that beautiful place every single time, every single way, and it will not let you down. It never will. It can't. It's not built into it. Um, yeah, yeah, that's that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is connecting with source. It is that is the trust. And very important to always, yeah, gauge and ask oneself, yeah, am I including myself in, I guess, in that net that I've casted to the right? Do I give the being that I represent for God as much respect and honor as I give to another? Or am I believing that by respecting and honoring others first, that this one will somehow attain validity, and then someone else will give it some respect and honor, and then it will prove to be worth it? So that's kind of like the bargaining. That's these selfless individuals that are constantly worn out and broken down, and feel used and feel abused, and are constantly doing things for others and have so little time for the self. And I have a lot of clients in my body work that have found themselves in that role, in that expression, and it's a really hard thing for them to open up to the idea that, oh, how I've been holding others and believing what I should be doing for others, I have to put myself on there too. Um, Very difficult thing for them to see. So uh, you can't just give and deny the self. It's not about sacrifice. That was proving ourselves to, well, to oppressors, proving our loyalty, right?
Yeah,
uh,
when it's ultimately a fear-based decision because I'm saying that I have to give in order to be accepted or received. Ultimately, I mean that's where it stemmed from. So again, it's still going back to that. What's my root cause? Where am I pulling this from?
mhm. Yeah, so absolutely recognition of I'm here to, um, by making the choice, I guess, of saying I'm here in service of source, would be, yes, I'm going to give all I am without restraint in every circumstance I can. Um, by providing critical judgment, that's not giving, that's taking, right? It's, I want them to hold on to an idea that they're less than they are, so I can take that energy that they would have reserved for themselves and I can hold it. So yes, by criticizing and judging the outer world, we're not contributing to it, even though we think we're imbuing it with our intelligence, right? um, Really what we're doing is we're taking. So being completely non-judgmental is, it's easy to do with others, but can we do it with ourselves, and say, yeah, I wasn't good yesterday, I screwed up, but that I shouldn't let that take away from my ability to make the right choice today. That's where you'll start making a step forward, and you'll realize when you get stuck in the loop, because you'll have gotten out of it on your own, even if it's one day or half a day. The path will be there. That step will be there, and it gets easier and easier. And in my experience, yeah, accepting love from the outer world. That's, we project love energetically through our right hand. So I wave at people typically with our right hand. With our left hand, we typically accept love. So if someone gives you a compliment, a lot of time you'll turn your right shoulder away, angle, and you'll swing with your left hand and say, "Oh, it was nothing," right? So you don't want that love from the world. You don't want it coming into you because you don't believe you're worthy of it. You just believe you're there for service of others. Like some of us that have grown up and tried to please and please and please, it's a terrible state to be in. And then when the world is trying to share the love back to you, you're denying it for self, believing it's righteous. Um, when really it makes the other person very uncomfortable, right? It's, oh, hey, you mowed my lawn. Hey, here's a lemonade. No, no, no. Well, I made it for you. What, you want me to pour it down the sink? Like I was that kid, you know what I mean? No, 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 no. You know what I mean? I don't want to take more than what I earned. I never understood people were trying to give me things, because I never understood there was a part of me that was worthy of receiving. Um, so I kind of had the opposite problem of those that are constantly looking to take from others, right? I was constantly looking to put it in others' baskets, and that left me with the circumstance of, yeah, autoimmune illness, right? Self-love deficiency will leave you in a deficiency of self-love, so your immune system isn't going to do its job if you don't believe you're worth protecting, I guess, right? um, so yeah, that's, so my understanding of yeah, service to others and service to self, I was really lost in that. And I can definitely, I understand it, or understand now, what people are meaning, but um, I think a lot of it stems from religious teachings and indoctrinations of piety, right? And the whole idea of the poor priest. And they sold us that idea when really he was the richest guy in town in every freaking church. Like the donations and the wealth, and then the cut for the church, and of course not beknownst to us, but always playing the poor guy and having an abundance. So I think we can transcend that now that we've transcended the idea that we can only talk to God in church. We know it's here. We are the temple. We are Solomon's temple. Um, Charlie's decodings of that are amazing, right? And the seven chakras. I was shown, 17, because I'm like, what is so special about 17? And then it was like, oh, yeah, no kidding. The seven chakras. That's us. There's seven chakras. We're divided into seven energy centers to bring in these different forms of vibration. And then what is the one? The one plus the seven. And then Charlie triggered it when he drew the figure eight, right? And the threshold of the crossing over the heart. Like I see the two spheres and the Vesca Pisces, the eye shape, the threshold. So the one plus the seven leads you to the eight, right? But what is the seven missing? The seven chakras is missing oneness consciousness. The beam of light to come and light them all up and unify it all into one column, a pillar of light. And look at all the pillars everywhere in Roman and Greek architecture, right? We are to become that pillar. And what does a pillar join? The heavens and the earth. So we are to become that pillar of a beam of light, but we're running around all trying to be a different color of the chakras or a different color of the rainbow, never realizing that our true color is gold. They're parts of us. So I think, yeah, finances, sexuality, philosophy, all these different aspects of self that were perverted by the divider. I think these are things that we're here to unify and unite. And this is kind of how I'm now, the new lens I'm seeing things through is, it's not just about cutting out all the things that were bad and rejecting them. It's by taking those things and then completely replacing the spirit of it, essentially, right? Like an ice cream truck driven by a loving person is a wonderful thing for the community, but put someone with malintent behind it, right? And yeah, it's really wrong. So I think that's what we can do with these systems that the divider has used to control us. Is we can hack God into these systems through our consciousness, through our vibration, because we are that oneness. So yeah, the whole 1 plus 7. I was like, okay, I'm okay with that, and so we are in that state right now. Q is bringing us to the state of understanding it is the union of the two. And someone asked that in one of the comments. Well, doesn't 17 just to reduce to 8 in gematria? And yeah, absolutely. That was the obvious question, right? God isn't going to give us the answer. He's going to provide the circumstances for us to identify the appropriate question. And when you have a 1 and 7 together and it's associated with all this stuff, keeps popping up, the only logical thing to do, an intuitive thing to do, is, well, you add them. And what does that mean? So we get to eternity that way. We get out of time that way. Time is just one circle, the snake eating its tail. But the figure 8, oh my gosh, you're going into both aspects. That's a circle transmuting into the other polarity. And it's a harmonistic experience. You're fluidly going from one to the other. And what has been the primary structure of control in society? The one currency that has enslaved us all. What if that is the one thing to free us all? So this quantum computing and quantum financial system has got me really intrigued. What if this is the ice cream truck parked, sitting there idle, waiting for godly beings to go and sit behind the wheel? Because if we don't make that choice, someone with malintent is going to happily take the wheel, right? So I guess that's really the message I feel that I'm meant to, that you provided me the opportunity to convey today, is that we aren't to see structures anymore as polaristic. We're to see our consciousness, and the cause of all our issues has been because we have been polaristic. And it is a choice. We need to make that choice. We can't say, okay, well, others will vibrate that high and they'll bring me along. Well, if that's true, they're going to enjoy the ride, and you're going to be the one on the roller coaster that almost had a heart attack the whole ride. So when we're all eating ice cream, having fond memories, you're going to be there sweating, just thankful to have survived the experience. So yes, it may be true that we can drag everyone along with us, but my gosh, wouldn't you want to enjoy it? So the choice, I think this is what Justin is providing people, and bringing out of me is yeah, we really have come to a crossroads. We've already made the choice. It's owning it now, admitting it, accepting and letting go of the idea that your family's going to understand you, that your old boss and workplace is going to vibrate on your level one day. It's going to be challenging to let go of all those ideas. And those of you that are embracing the change, yeah, prepare to have your worlds turned upside down, because that's God's purpose. Lucifer has got us living upside down. So it's a grace to have your world turned upside down right now. So don't see COVID and don't curse it, and don't get all mad at it as if it's this thing. It's the circumstance that God has provided us to acknowledge there's a choice to make. I can either get that shot in the arm or not. It doesn't get black or whiter than that, right? Why are you going to get that shot in the arm? There's only one answer to that, right? Well, I'm afraid to get sick. Okay, that's your choice. You made a choice. You are going to choose fear to be your God, and your God will teach you through fear. The golden age is all about us individuals that have heard the call of Mother Earth and recognize the time is now for her to exist on a whole new level of learning, a whole new level of consciousness. And this is what you're referring to, Justin, is the bad guys can only get so far, and then they don't go beyond. So they'll always be stuck in learning through polarity. They'll always need someone to oppress. It's not like they get so evil that poof, it's all evil all the time and they're in bliss evil. No, there's always going to be good guys effing with them along the way. Whereas us, there will be no more bad, because it doesn't vibrate that way. And when we learn, it's going to be through a really funny joke. It's going to be through a really beautiful experience. Dolphins have so much to teach us, right? That's higher consciousness learning right there. They don't torment their young. They give it a fish and say, here, learn. And they give it a live fish. So it's more challenging to learn. Not because they're trying to torment their child. They're trying to make it more of an entertaining experience, right? And a dolphin isn't going to say, oh, it's torture on the little fish. They understand their role in the pantheon of consciousness, right? So owning ours as well will allow us out of the idea that we need to fear death and hold on to our loved ones until the very end. No, if their bodies are broken down, dying of COVID might be a beautiful release for them, right? So yeah, I think transcendence is a potential out there. So don't seek to separate from your old self, but see it as liberating. You're rising from it. It is the launching pad that got you there. Have love for it. Otherwise, we can easily cut off a part of ourselves and say, well, I no longer eat meat because that version of me is wrong. And now I identify with veganism or vegetarianism. Um, no, say, hey, I have evolved to a point where my body can operate off of the direct source, or one middleman, not two. So I'm gaining up the ladder. It's a good thing for me. So if someone else I come into contact with still orders meat or needs that for their sustenance, I don't need to sit in a place of judgment. And I don't even have to convince myself, oh, it's okay that they're doing that because I'm where I am. You don't even need to have that conversation anymore. You're liberated. And then one day you might find that, wow, sure, I have a craving for that. And if it's organic, okay, it lived a good life and you guys raised it yourself and I'm visiting you and staying on your farm and that's what you serve. Sure, I'll have some chicken soup. And I'm not going to believe that its dead vibration will harm me. I will silently give reverence to that animal and send my love to it, so that anything it's attached to, it will release. So we can God has provided this world for us to transmute. We are that godly being. Um, it's dangerous to say that from a place of ego, and even to hear it from a place of ego, and that's why so many movements have got hijacked, right? But I don't know. Everything plays its role. Um, Everything along, I won't say anything along my path has been wrong. They've all played a role in helping me grow. Um, and then when I've grown, I didn't discard it and say it wasn't wrong. It was right in that moment. But now that the moment has changed, the most loving thing to do is to let it go.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's that's the highest pitfall, is stepping into that judgment, reaching a certain the higher you rise, the higher you can fall, to a degree, and that's what we have to be so conscious and careful of, because when we reach the higher states of consciousness, if we are not vigilant and we allow our ego to slip right in, then it can flip us, and we're just inverted at that higher stage, at that higher level, and therefore able to do a lot more disastrous and harmful things to those around us. Um, which is just important to remember, that there's never there's not any point in time where it becomes like you can just stop paying attention to that initial decision that decision point of, am I casting my net to the right or to the left? It has to always be to the right, and no matter how high I rise or where I go. And judgment's an easy one to slip into, because when we get to that place where we see things more clearly, we can, if we let our ego, we can become frustrated by those who don't see it, or don't have a desire to get to that point, instead of just understanding that they're at that point for the exact reason that they need to be, and nothing in this is imperfect or needs to be rushed or changed in any sort of trajectory. And by me having judgment, I am instilling some form of desire to control, which is always pulling from that egoic construct. It's always pulling from that world that I claim to want to be trying to avoid. And by saying those kind of things and believing them, then I'm acknowledging that that world still needs to exist, and therefore it will. And until we transcend that, like you said, it will exist. So it just requires that vigilance in every single moment to not even really say, it's not really a conscious doing or pushing away, because when those thoughts creep in, it doesn't serve us to push them away in any sort of forceful manner, but just to observe them and see why am I rooted in that? Why do I have that? Um, but we have to, if we do want to get past it, we do have to acknowledge, what is the root cause? What is causing these sort of things? Where is my shadow showing up? What sort of traumas have I not healed from? Where have I not grown from? And what am I being shown today to get me past this point? And but everything can be transmuted. And going back to, I like what you said, and it's important to remember that this whole world has been flipped upside down. So all of these sacred symbols and numbers and everything of that nature, they have their purpose and meaning, and they're all powerful in their own regard, in their own way. And just remembering that Lucifer and Lucifer's forces, they can't create anything. God is the only creator that there is. So the only thing that Lucifer can do is copy and invert. So don't ever give that power away. Don't ever relinquish that as just an evil thing, an evil symbol or evil number outright. Like I'm very much drawn to the number 33, and whenever I throw it around to someone who's aware to a degree but not quite fully aware, it's always like, oh, that's a Masonic number. Like it's evil. It's got evil behind it, and it's like, no, that's the holiest number. It's very powerful. I mean, not the holiest, but it's a very holy, or not, I guess we're not saying holy, hallowed. Hallowed. It's a very hallowed, a very sacred number.
Yes.
Um, but it's not evil in its own right. There is nothing that is evil by nature. It's nothing natural is evil. We bring evil into, we can possess things with evil by our conscious intent, but nothing in its natural state is evil. It just is. It just is, just as everything is, perfectly balanced and perfectly harmonious, always.
Absolutely. Oh, Justin, yeah, you really touched me there with yeah, with the observer, and sitting with it, and whenever, yes, we feel judgment, we ask, where is this coming from? That's really what it's about. That's the hardest part, is being honest with self. And as far as the sacred numbers, absolutely. Like I see that 666 everywhere and stuff, and I'm like, oh, what a wonderfully lucky number. It's such a lucky number. It just um, so I'm not afraid of that at all. And I meditated on that. I really like physics. I really like engineering. And I was a little frustrated with, okay, the 369, right? Why is that so important, and why haven't I clued into that yet? And like I said, so the 33, right? The three numbers of three, to equal nine. We have, in my understanding of the energy work I do, there's 7 chakras, but the 3 main ones we're concerned with is the crown, and just the solar plexus, so just below the navel. So we call that the lower dantian, the upper dantian, and then the diaphragm, the heart chakra, the point in between the two. So there's the 3, and one is the father, the mother, and the child. So in one aspect, in the father, well, within the father contains both the mother and child as well. So if you get to 6, it's the 3 selves, divided into the dual aspects. So the understanding of self comes first within the Trinity. You understand, oh, I'm divided into 3. And then you understand, oh, but within that 3, I do have polarities. I've got a right side and a left side. So if I multiply my trine by 2 sides, well, I've got the 6, and that's the human form. But then the third is the unification of the dualities, right? So dualistic consciousness, black versus white, you join that together, and then you got oneness perception. So that's the child, right? So up here you have male, female, but what if you join the two? Oh, now you have the potential for both, or oneness. So that's times in 3 on each different chakral point, essentially, making 9, which is God's number. So now you have God within you, because each chakra is now got the trine resonating as 1. And it's a union of 3s, and there's 3 of them. So you become that multiple of 3 within you. So it's just your little version understanding, your egoic understanding would be 3. And then your intuitional understanding would be your feelings, which would be 6. And that's why 6 is so prevalent in this reality, because it's all about feeling and emotion to make it real. That's what anchors it and creates it. The idea is the spark, and then it's the emotion, that the magnetism that makes it interactable, I guess. Um, so the experience of self, that's what Tesla is talking about. And if we base technology on that as well, then we invite God consciousness into that technology, or that structure, or our house. If we build on principles of multiples of 3 in our house, it will promote unification of duality within that house. So I believe churches were built for this, and temples, and the pipe organs. They were all to help people resonate in unity, and thus amplify to a higher aspect of self. That 3, 6, 9, you're jumping up octaves and levels of personal observational awareness. So you're observing yourself in more and more aspects, but getting a wholer and wholer picture. So it's a dichotomy. The more the aspects and the broader the view, the more of one it all appears to be. Whereas the divider seeks to find oneness through division, right? The electron microscope. If we get small enough, we're going to get to the root of it all. So yeah, like in physics, and science, if this method failed us and we got the exact opposite way, well, let's go the other way. So yeah, let's point our telescopes out at the universe. And what does it look like? Well, it looks like a bunch of brain neurons and pathways between them, right? So I I will only seek to understand consciousness on a higher level, but I understand that, or understand on this level, I'll never understand it. But it's not going to stop me from trying, right? So I think that's the expansion. That when you ring that bell, that 1, 2, 3. Why was Trump always saying it 3 times? And just being an observer, many, many, many times. How many times have other people picked that up in their idiosyncrasies? News reporters, other YouTube hosts and stuff. And the first time I ever heard it was Trump. I've never heard someone use so many times when they were talking many people. But he would say it in threes all the time. And then I noticed whoa. And then I talk about ringing our own gongs, right? So that's it. It's sending out a wavelength of amplification. When you ring 3 times, that third one makes it solid. When I've created vortices and spiritual work, the first 2, it starts it, it gets it going, but the third, it's that catalyst. And we say the third time's a charm, right? And 2 come together to make the third, or to become one, right? To bring in the third consciousness. So yeah, I'm starting to get a little bit of threads on this whole 369 idea and pyramid power, and you triggered that. It's the observer. We become the observer, and I guess that answers my whole presenting the idea that we're hacking God into this reality. And by allowing us presently in this moment to have the position of the observer, that's exactly what we're doing. We're letting God look through our eyes in that moment when we're not discerning. We don't need to. We're witnessing the beauty in all its aspects. And what a beautiful reality when this is the knowledge that's promoted. No more politics through propaganda. So yeah, if this is what's out there right now, we're a few months away from this taking root and people opening businesses based on these principles. This is the saying it many, many, many times. And then it'll start to catch on, and others will start to repeat these ideas within themselves. They will become the six of this three that we're vibing out there. And then when we add those together, well, it becomes nine. You put the idea and the human together, and well, God is at work. Um, I'm really feeling it now. We're really close. It may be 3 months away. It's going to be like pulling teeth, waiting, right? And so many of us that have been waiting for this movement and this knowledge to come out. What a moment of just void. And it's just like that static. There's just nothing. It's like space right now. What a beautiful envelope that God has given us, this little bubble of peace to say, no one will bother you when you're in your little bubble right now. No one's going to pressure you to get out of your house and get stuff done because they're sitting at their home realizing that no one's pressuring them to. And now we're all asking the question, why do I still feel pressured then? Why? So what a gift for everyone to get to acknowledge right now. And those of us that have accepted the gifts, yeah, we're more than willing to share our abundance. And if those gifts come in other ways, then yeah, we don't have to worry about ego coming in and saying, oh, you shouldn't have all that money because it will lead you astray. We got to drop those ideas. We're the best ones to be millionaires. Think of the startup businesses that we can help out. Think of the amount of organic producers that will support, and the ideas that we can promote. So God is going to start giving those of us that have accepted His love, its love, a lot of tools. So don't let ego come in and say, put that down. You don't want to be too good. Why not? Be the best version you can be. Yeah, let God smile through you. Yeah. So many of you see it through Justin. I see it through him. It's God smiling through him. It's the peace he's feeling inside that we're seeing through you. It's beautiful. It's what we're all wanting to attain. And yeah, ask the questions. The answers will always be inside. We just got to be brave enough to ask them, right?
Beautifully said. Man, I could. So yeah, I mean, to just reciprocate that. Thank you for sharing. And you know, I know that just hearing people in the chat and every time you speak, people want to hear more, Robin. So anytime you're ready to come back on, and you can definitely speak on my channel, but people are ready to hear what you have to say, and I think you know that as well. So
Well,
we're here.
thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, it's a blessing, and yeah, there is so much to share, right? And in time, absolutely. I can't wait to do this again with you.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
the message is always the thing of importance, right? And it is changing. I have no idea. I'm the first one to admit I've got no idea why it's happening, but I'm really excited that something is happening. And when I use my discernment, I know that okay, if evil was really in control, this is not what it would look like. So I take a lot of assurance from that. That's how I can be at such peace right now, knowing that vaccines are out there and people are getting injured. I know that okay, it's a part of The plan, I'm starting to understand, it's not Q's plan, it's God's plan. It's the plan for humanity that we have to trust. That these birthing pains, that we're worthy of being birthed into this new world. Um, it's not some military hacker's plan that he figured out for everyone, because no human can account for any variables outside of themselves. And even then, I'm the first one to admit failure on that, right? How many of us have attained perfection in our daily lives? Um, so yeah, and that's what's so beautiful about us. Pretty easy to accept our brethren when we can all admit we're flawed, right? Hey, that's okay. So am I. Don't feel bad about that. Hey, in fact, your flaw makes you able to carry more weight than me. So right on. Look at that. You got way more value. Your heavy bones that make you less agile and nimble. Well, look, I'd blow out my tendons carrying that up this mountain, but you can do it for the team or whatever it may be, right? It's, um, yeah, expressions of consciousness, what a variety that God has provided us. Yeah, it's tumultuous time, a lot of turmoil.
It's the best time. It's the
So
best time.
yeah, if we're grounding and anchoring for people out there, then what a blessing to know. Because just on a selfish note, shoot, I knowing that this exists now, I encourage everyone to just be doing Zoom calls with each other and discuss your feelings and thoughts. You don't have to record it, but have your own dialogue like Justin and I are. You'll be really surprised at what comes out when you're fearlessly sharing, right? And we do see a lot of you guys in the comments. The wisdom being dropped in there too. It's amazing. We're all a big team. Um, it's an honor to wear an A or a C for a game or two, right? And that's the role we get to play. And then hopefully next game, someone else, it will be more appropriate for them to wear the A, and represent. So keep finding your thing out there. Healing and admitting to pain. That's that's my thing. So yeah, that's what we're all going through right now. So I've got a voice now. A lot of you are going to speak of great beauty and have a lot of excitement and enthusiasm to share. Whereas some of us that are on the cynical side, we're the ones that are going to be tuning into your shows 4 months from now when we have all this abundance and we don't know how to share it because we were too cynical to create that reality. We want some of you guys to spark that for us. And what, a wheatgrass business juicing? Sure. I don't want to grow the stuff and juice it for myself, but if I can get a bag of it delivered, heck yeah, right on. So yeah, I think providing a fertile earth for God to come and start uniting and see what we can grow here in this garden, and let's make it our own Eden, and let's be the Adam, let's be the Eve, walking back into it with God's blessing. Let's let go of all these ideas, and that is the ego that we're talking about. Um, that is the serpent in the garden looking to divide, um, and even paint the serpent as bad, right? The whole divider did that. So, and yeah, you shine a light on that. Well, what's the key to ascension but releasing that that energy from the base of the spine, but doing it in a loving way. We won't get into the negative way today. That'll be another day because we're on such positivity here. But yeah, awaken your own energies within. Bring the spirit in. Start your fires, people. Get the stoves burning. Get the goods baking and preserves going. Now is the time to create your reality. That's why we have this envelope of static time right now. It's almost like a bubble outside of time until those of us that are dragging their feet get to see the picture clearer. Those of us that can see through it, now's our time to get ready for the next period, the next stage, and do it real. Put on your best outfit. Present yourself in your best light. Believe in that self. So many are going to be inspired, just like we're here doing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it so much. It's incredible being, led to this place where we get to have these kind of conversations, the ones that, I mean, I can't speak for you, but the ones that I've always dreamed of just having that openness and that reciprocation to where there's no topic that's off the table. It's all there and it's all beautifully aligns in such a good way. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on. I do think we should probably wrap up. We've been going for a good bit now, but do you have any sort of last comments or leaving parting thoughts or anything like that?
Um, yeah, I just want to give honor to the being that is Justin. His choice to represent himself this lifetime this way. What an inspiration! Your light really does shine through. I can see your aura on camera and everything. So yeah, those of you that see it too, yeah, that's the spark inside of you. You guys share that beauty, that sincerity, that um, English is a difficult language. Uh, English is a tough one because soft is not the appropriate word. But there is a word, there is a feeling behind that you express, and other people pointed that out in comments and said you're like our personal Jesus. Jesus, that soul to me when I've had interactions with the spirit, the consciousness, yes, it does represent itself in a visual way masculine, but energetically it is feminine. It feels like the big sister energy, the loving, the one that's in control, that's there to accept you no matter how much you think you messed up. And so that's what we're feeling is that lack of judgment. So those of us that can accept that light shone on us, that lack of judgment, and feel that, those individuals that feel that, you're to shine that on to others. Be inspired. You're of that same vibration. So it's an honor to be invited to talk to you and to be a part of this community. Yeah, big things are really happening, and it's internal. We're all hoping for the news to drop out there, but let it drop in here first, and then it will happen out there. And when it happens out there, we'll be like, oh, okay, that's just affirmation of what I just did. World War III didn't have to happen on a ballistic scale. It wasn't nuclear war. And that was because individuals like ourselves, we went through our growths a couple of years back to allow us to be in this state. And those of us that are going through these changes now are going to allow the golden age to exist for our children. So yes, many times I've been told it's not important that you have a following. It's important that the message is seeded, because the future teachers they're the ones that are being seeded right now. If we're the inspiration for the future teachers, what an honor. And I'm really excited to be an old man one day and sit back and marvel at what's able to be created here, because of the courage that we had in our youth and in our younger times. So thank you for your courage, Justin, and sharing that energy, because soft isn't the appropriate word, because as we know, Jesus, he had volition. There was nothing going to cause him to waver from his beliefs. And we need these individuals. I am a very suspicious, doubting individual. I am wonderful at provoking someone to cast doubt upon their matrix and to start identifying the things that are wrong with things so they can start detaching. I'm excellent for ripping the Velcro off, but bringing unity, that's where I really want to give some honor to your energy and what you are doing, Justin, because that's the bringing the Velcro back together again where it should be. um, so how cool to participate in this talk where we can offer both services in one live event. And this is how I do know big things are coming. The golden age, it's a reality. All these timelines, they're really collapsing. So make a party out of it, right? Yeah. Thank you, everyone that tuned in. I look forward to next time. Um,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Next time, I'm already looking forward to it. Every conversation between us. I mean, we're gonna have another one tomorrow night on Greg's channel, so make sure to tune in for that for our Masculine Mondays. But yeah, I mean, Robin, you're such a gift, and the way that you portray your perception of this reality and poetically weave everything and how it should be. It's such a beautiful song that you sing. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for singing with me today because it really is magnificent. And yes, I know that by stepping into who we truly are, we can inspire others to step into who they truly are, and that's where it really comes from, that not letting go of that expectation that there's going to be some sort of savior that's going to bring us into this new age in some form of way, but letting go of that expectation that it's something or someone else. It's me. I have to do the work. I have to be the change. I have to be the one to do that. And we get to decide collectively how long it's going to take for us to fully manifest into that reality. It's going to happen. It's been decided, but the time it takes to get there and the lessons that we are required to go through in order to reach that point are completely up to us, completely our decision. So make the right decision. Always cast, and it's the right, and we'll get there real quick. But thank you, Robin. Thank you so much for hopping on today. I love you so much, brother, and I look forward to talking with you tomorrow, um, and many times in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Justin. Love you, my
All right.
brother.
All right. Take care.